Welcome to the L&P Beyond Legal podcast for another exciting session with the very incredible, very amazing in-house counsel. And I've just realized that all my podcasts, by the way, have only had female guests. So I think we're on a roll here. And I have got Nomthandazo Malele, who is from DBSA and who has been in-house as an attorney for about 3 years now, I think. Yeah. And I've got the incredibly experienced, much longer in-house general counsel, managing counsel in the petroleum and mining sectors, Reneiloe Masemene. I think
perfect.
I've got that perfect.
Very polite way of saying I've had my bum in my seat for too long.
So it was quite interesting because when we were having a call about, what is it that we think we'd want to talk about, etc., and naturally and quite organically, the conversation tended towards Nomthandazo, having moved into in-house and Reneiloe having been there for a long time. What were the expectations of going in-house that we thought, didn't exist in practice, and how those expectations were so different, having been in-house now for a certain period of time, having been in-house for a really long time, and so that was quite an interesting debate, and we thought, let's talk about this because it's something that's going to affect everyone. And I think what's really nice is having this discussion with the two of you, being very strong women who are able to give some advice to our colleagues out there. Nomthandazo, having been at DBSA, and you and I work together given our similar practice areas, so I know how crazy busy it is. What's been your expectation of moving towards in-house versus being in practice, and what has the reality been?
So I think my expectation was more time to myself, right? I just thought I'm going to be moving in-house and at least I'm going to have more time to myself. I won't have clients, wanting deliverables. And then, there's no renegotiating around that. A deliverable is a deliverable when it comes from client, especially in practice. Then moving in-house, obviously my client is now in-house colleagues, right? So my expectation was, we'll be more chilled, but that wasn't the case. But I think what I soon realized was that, I need to maintain my work ethic. What I have acquired all throughout in practice, I needed to keep that and not let go of that because it's how I have been trained and it's how I know I'm able to manage workload. So just making sure that, I kept my work ethic when I went in, which I think that made the transition easier. But I'm just making sure that I set those boundaries and I communicate clearly with my internal colleagues, in terms of timelines and expectations, and allowing them to let me know what their expectations are and letting them know what is really doable. And I think just being clear on those boundaries to say, see, your matter is urgent, but this is what I'm currently busy with, and this is when I will be able to get back to you. And yes, there will be those days where it's really urgent that everything else you're doing, you need to drop it. So I think it's just being able to manage the transition and being able to move from one matter to the other. And I think the beauty of being in practice sometimes is when you're dealing with a matter today, you're dealing with it because there's a deliverable due for a client. In-house, you sometimes have to stop whatever you're doing to attend to something else that just came up right now, and you just have to drop everything and attend to it and be able to go back to what you were doing later on. So,
Hey, and Reneiloe, from your perspective, you've heard what Nomthandazo said, and not to harp on the words of wisdom of how long you've been in-house, but, what are your thoughts on that?
And it's quite similar. I think we have this illusion that it's going to be fundamentally different in-house because we tend to take a very rudimentary outlook to the law firm experience, that you are a fee earner filling out a timesheet, whether it's still the mechanical paper-based one or electronically. But it's pretty much very, very similar because then once you get in-house, your clientele are the very same business units within the same organization. But I think it becomes very sobering quite quickly because you don't have the benefit of many resources. Often in-house, the legal team is very lean. So you're working with 3, 4, 5 people, irrespective of the size of the organization. And the business units will differ in size, anything from around 50 to 100 people. So you do become a generalist, which pretty much means you have to be very adaptable. I always say you're walking a tightrope. You're a trapeze artist. Just ensure that you don't fall down. And if you do, you really do have to bounce back very quickly. You are still earning a fee. You're just not billing the client in as conventional a manner as in a law firm. But it can get quite hair-raising, and you will have to gnash your teeth often because you've got competing objectives, and you have no master per se, because you do want to appease every single person within the business units. Yes, you'll have naturally in any organization the actual rainmakers, so you tend to lean towards servicing those with efficiency, but I'm not saying you necessarily detract from serving the others. But yeah, the work-life balance becomes a bit of a challenge, because with that, you feel like you're being pulled in different directions, but only experience, I think, teaches you to actually be quite hard about it. You sit there with the business and you say, I will give you my all, and as will my team, but we do have to walk the line and really bend some matters. I mean, we call it the bend list, where there will be priority matters and everyone have a walk the path with business. You're all aligned. And then there will be the matters where, okay, in your objective judgment, business, is this really something that legal should be doing? And I always use a very, very simplistic example. We all know we have to wear our seatbelts when we leave home. Do you guys have to call legal to say, should I wear my seatbelt? No, you don't, because you know as a matter of course that you have to, because the law requires you to do that. So there are some matters in-house that are actually fairly rudimentary and banal that the teams themselves can do without necessarily deferring to legal. Just because it's a contract doesn't mean it always has to come to legal. So we always use the logic that I judge it against the 3 R's, risk, reward, reputation. And so it becomes a materiality game. And with that, it helps you maintain some form of work balance by really being able to push back on the matters that don't necessarily warrant either a general counsel's attention, or in some matters, I mean, your in-house legal are senior people with the requisite experience post-qualification. So you really don't want to burden them with things that operationally the teams themselves can tend to with a fair amount of ease. Yeah.
I think you've both touched on quite a few things that I wanted to hone in on a little bit. So I'll just take it in any particular order. Nomthandazo, you've got 2 kids, right? And Reneiloe, you've got
Same
two as well. For some reason, I thought it was only one girl. I don't know why.
It feels like it because the other one has gone to boarding school. So I do feel like I only have one now.
And, you know, the thing that, you know, people in practice always complain about the hours, etc. But the thing I always like about practice is the flexibility. Yes, the client deadlines are the client deadlines, but the flexibility. I have no kids, but I do have 4 dogs. So the flexibility of being able to take them to the vet in the morning or sort them out, etc. Or, you know, if there's an emergency, get that done. Does that sort of, and I suppose in one of the other podcasts, we were talking about not so much work-life balance as work-life integration. And I thought that was a really good term, because does that flexibility still exist in-house, or are you expected to be chained to your desk from whatever working hours are prescribed? Or do you have the flexibility to say, you know, I've got a kids sports day, I've got something to do for the kids, and I will be back online at X time. So what has been your experience for that?
Moving in-house as a junior, you know, I think having someone who's been in practice, someone who's now working, you know, been working in house, just, you know, to advising you, you know, I see your work ethic, but I also don't want you to burn out. And this is how you can manage, right? And I think just taking those pointers and just looking at how can this work for me and my life, and how do I want to be available for my kids? If I have a doctor's appointment in the morning, I'm able to say, I have a doctor's appointment, I will be back online at this time, and just having that open communication. People know where you are at what time. But during office hours, just try to be as productive as possible. As I said, there will be times when you have to drop everything to attend to that urgent matter, but just making sure that you have specific timelines and just really enforcing those. It means removing notifications, remove those notifications. You can't always be available 24/7, because if you know yourself, especially with practice, sometimes, you start and you have your notifications, and when the notification comes, you just want to open it and see, like, okay, it's nothing hectic, it's fine. Yeah. So when I moved in-house, I stopped notifications. When I want to go on Outlook and look for emails and see what needs to be done, I do that because I've consciously decided that this is what I'm going to do now. So I'm not always 24/7 available. I'm not at the mall and I'm like checking my emails, because I know consciously it's when I'm going to get home, or it's when I'm going to get to the office, I'm going to open my emails and see what is there for me to do. If it's really, the building is burning, then give me a call. Then
don't even when that happens. I always say there's a fire department for that. I mean, I think just going to that whole concept of your work-life integration, I really like that, because I think a lot of it goes to the maturity of both the manager and the organization. Yeah. And I always say, I mean, your employee and your colleagues, kids and family will always know your name as a manager. So you can either be a positive reinforcement or bad one. So in terms of things that like recitals, school assembly, the swimming gala, naturally that's always seasonal. So it has a time and place. And yes, of course, you want transparency and accountability that, okay, we know Nikita is still at work, but she'll only be available from 10 o'clock. So naturally, guys, block it out. First thing, an Outlook and MS Teams. And that way everyone knows you're not available. You don't need to be opening your life up to all and sundry and telling them that you're a ballet recital. Yes. But again, a manager that trusts you and knows that you're putting in the work can really afford to let you go, as it were, for those 2 hours, 3 hours. Because at the end of the day, I always say legal work is really just about output. You're not sitting there, you're not a neurosurgeon where, okay, you didn't stitch up a patient that's going to be catastrophic. You can still make up the time, particularly in-house. So if you have a manager that is, I would say, fairly mature, then they understand that those are things that will ultimately make you want to come back and remain in the organization and demonstrate that loyalty, because you are not being taken to task about something as simple as being present for family. If you're fulfilled within your personal space, then of course you're going to want to shoot out the lights at work. But if there's that imbalance and you have someone that, for lack of a better word, is that hard-assed, that they really want to be a clock watcher, that be there from 8 until 5, then you're going to be looking at work with a jaundiced view. And naturally, I think your output is probably going to be a little bit suspect because you're doing everything begrudgingly. So I think it's about, I like the notion of integration. So it's not so much a balance, but understand that you yourself, as a manager or colleague, you want to be present for your children. So I know I go to my kids' galas, and I got to a stage where I would block out that time, mindful of the fact that swimming season is 6 weeks and it alternates. So it's not like I'm going to be disappearing every Friday. So if it's this Friday, naturally next week Friday, I'll be available, because the schools tend to have it Friday on, then the following Saturday. So, and it's 6 weeks. So ultimately at the end, that's 3 weeks cumulatively that you've allowed someone to just be present for their family, and they will want to then pick up the slack should you require them to work after hours. Then even in my capacity as the GC, I would certainly be a little bit more open to taking a call on Friday evening at 8 when I know I've been afforded that flexibility to show my humaneness and be present as a mother. But if you don't afford me that, then we'll see. I'll also be a clock watcher. I'll be quite pedantic. Exactly. You tend to get those behaviors. They'll replicate with that level of pettiness okay, let me be pedantic. My contract actually says 8 to 5. Yeah. So, 5 is my family time.
It's the action and reaction, right?
100%.
And the flexibility. But, I like what Nomthandazo was saying, and Reneiloe, it's something I actually didn't consider it. And yet all the sort of material you read is about being present and this mindful living, because I don't think it actually matters whether you're in practice or, in house, is to not check your phones. The best thing I ever did was switch off, like when you're working on a document in your laptop, like you say, switch off those email notifications, because I think we've become so wired that when you see that pop-up notification, even though I'm like on page 50 of a 300-page document, busy drafting, is I want to look at what it says, because now I can see it's on a live matter, or I can see it's from a client that I was waiting for something. And it was the most freeing and liberating thing not to switch that off and just work through a document. I feel like your focus is sharper, your mind is. And then the benefits, of course, is when you are with your family, you're with your family, So one of the things that I think any organization, and to be fair, I don't know if it's the organizations, because we work at LNP and we make up half that, half those letters, or I make up half those letters. And I still will be checking my phone for emails on a holiday, at the airport, in a shopping center. I could be buying the most amazing thing, and I'd still be like, oh, let me just check my emails. It's become ingrained. And I think that maybe that's, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but maybe the sort of note is not necessarily to the organization, it's actually to yourself to say, this, you need to put the boundaries in place, you need to do this, because otherwise you're only ever half present.
I always said to myself, I just want to be consciously available. Like, I'm consciously here in the space right now, and that's what I'm dealing with right now. Because what tends to happen when you have all these notifications open, the document that you're working on is not going to take you 4 hours instead of it taking 2 hours, because you're stopping every now and then to attend to something else. What that happens as well, it disadvantages you, because then things fall through the cracks. You open an email with, hope that you're going to come back to it. But now it's open, it's on read, right? You come back the following day, it's new emails. Now you've forgotten, but the email that you open, and someone comes back to you 2 weeks later to say, how far are you on this? You're like, oh my gosh.
Because it's not ready, right?
Your train of thought.
So you're like,
so it's like, even open, like reading and unreading it. Just don't do that. Just block it out. Work on what you're working on. Just be consciously in doing that task. Finish it. Then you're able to be productive. Because you end up, end of the day, and you look back like, what did I tick off today? There isn't much, because half the time you were just trying to respond to this person, trying to respond to this one, trying to teach this one, this is how it's done. As Reneiloe said, with internal colleagues, sometimes you feel like asking them, do you call me to say, can I put the seatbelt on?
I have a feeling you're going to use this analogy a lot.
I certainly have, so I'm guilty of that. But I'm just saying that because we glamorize, like you're saying, we're hardwired to want to do things. It's like everything is about instant gratification. It's almost as if you're missing out on something. And we certainly have a very perverse understanding of working under pressure. We glamorize it. That no, I can multitask. I'm going to do the document.
According to my doctor, you can't do that.
There's absolutely no value in that. So compartmentalize the work. And again, it goes back to priority setting. So imagine, triage it in the same way that you go to casualty. They will tell you the guy with the stab wound through his head is certainly going to be more priority than you is coming. What did you do? I think I conked my toe against the bed. Can you walk? Yeah. Did you drive yourself here? 100%. Did that guy with the knife through his skull drive himself there? Absolutely not. So again, from optics, to give that one priority. Same thing with legal. Your 400-page contract, I can absolutely guarantee you, probably from a materiality perspective, is that much more important than someone saying, oh, I think I forgot, I didn't renew the contract. When is the termination date? It's like, well, that horse is bolted, if that's what you're asking.
The thing is, you say hardwired, and I have this expression, and I keep using it on the podcast, and apologies to all our listeners and lawyers out there who are mortally offended by this. But I say that as lawyers, and I put myself very squarely in this, I'm not suggesting it's the two of you, that we are narcissistic, type A, insecure people pleasers, which is why...
Speak for yourself.
Which is why we're so when you say it's hardwired, I don't see the glamour in having to work a long hour. Like, I do not see the glamour in formatting at 3 a.m. when the document has to go out and I'm the last, person to touch it. So it has
It's
to be
not glamour,
formatted.
but we certainly happen. It's institutionalized, right? I mean, you take it from practice. I mean, Nomthandazo, you're a lot younger. So for some of us that were there 23 years ago, like there was something that was heightened. It was elevated that, okay, the guy or the clerk, CLP, that leaves earlier, career limiting move. And the guys that are there until a late evening and then will still go and fraternize at the bar on the Friday, those people, more than not, will be the ones that succeed. So I'm not saying we glamorize it per se, but it was something that was almost hardwired, that if you're slaving away beyond the ordinary hours, you are seen as more value addition within the legal fraternity than the person that could quite conceivably have mastered the art of time management, that they leave at 5. But again, the optics have been swayed to the legal fraternity that if you're breaking your back, slaving away, you're a hard worker, versus the person that can quite nicely trot in and still leave at a decent civilized hour when the sun is still out. So it's not so much glamour, but I think it certainly is some indoctrination. Maybe we are narcissistic, we love pain, or sadomasochist, whatever the case may be.
I think we're like people pleasers as well, and a little bit insecure. I've never been secure enough to say to a client no. Like, I can hand up, fess up on that. I've never been secure enough. I've only ever said no if it's not my practice area. But if it's within my practice area, I'm like, no, definitely yes.
Definitely I'll do it.
And that's maybe what I was going with the hardwired was, how difficult is it, and what would your advice be to place the boundaries in place, to be able to, I know it depends on the organization and your manager, your team lead, your general counsel, but a lot of us, I think, I want to say yes because I feel bad when I say no. How hard is it to undo that and to be consciously available, whether it's at work, another expression I love, whether it's at work or whether it's at home, and say, this is what I'm doing. How easy is it?
It's not easy, I mean, but it is a lot of work. So you need to bring everyone along with it. I always say to my kids, no is a perfectly good and finite answer.
Oh gosh,
so if we can practice that at home where you have those boundaries, may I have ice cream at 11 p.m.? No, because you should be asleep. Well, we know that. And somehow we're able to follow through with that. So again, in the workspace, we should be able to, because if you bring along business and we're all aligned on the priority sets, then anything else that comes from the sidelines really isn't. So I got into the habit at the beginning of each year, you sit with the different managers of the respective units and you bring the whole legal team along. Everyone hears it in real time. ABC are absolute must-haves for this year. D to F, maybe 6 to 12 months. And there are others, it'll be great if it can be closed out, but if not, it's not catastrophic. There's no calamity there. So if everyone knows it, then again, when you get those requests and engagements from business, it's incredibly clear that this is a massive detraction from what has been agreed upon. So again, it's not urgent. Happy to do it once I have obviously gone through the priority set, but it may not necessarily be today. So at best, it may be 48 hours, 72. Naturally, you obviously have to assess the degree of urgency of that particular matter as well. It's not like everything else that hasn't been cast in stone naturally falls away. I mean, there will be matters throughout the year, urgent applications. Again, you assess it. Is it urgent? You want to obviously naturally respond so that it doesn't become an unopposed matter. So yes, it's a value judgment, but I think a lot of the times it's really bringing along everyone on board, just so that we're all effectively singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
And I think for me also, it's just recognizing that the boundary will not always be the same. It will fluctuate, as you said, based off what we're currently busy with right now and what is more urgent and requires me to now work late at night. My boundary is I'm not working after 5. But because something has come up, I'm required to work after 5. I think it's just recognizing that and being able to go back to a boundary when that, that work that you're busy with, subsides, and you say, okay, this is my boundary is back in place. So people don't assume that, okay, I saw you working at 2 a.m., so it means you just basically work at 2 a.m. No, I don't. I'm working at 2 a.m. because there was this deliverable that I needed to get out, and it was really important and urgent. So just recognizing that cycle every time there's work to be done. Say, this work is a bit quiet. My boundary is always there, but sometimes we will have to fluctuate. You can't, it's not going to be set on stone, as our lives are not set on stone. So what you think you're going to do the following day when you wake up might just be all thrown out, which means you still have a to-do list that's remaining from today that you couldn't get to, which means you're going to have to move it to another day. And I think sometimes that's the beauty of being in house, is just being able to catch up with the time. Even if you decide, okay, I have a hard stop at 5, but I want to wake up early just to get through a few things today so that I can offload on my plate, so I can have that time at 5 p.m. to just not be available at all. Because unfortunately, sometimes it is at the back of your mind to, it's always you still have that thing, that was supposed to be done 2 weeks back and still not done because something else came up. So it's just setting those boundaries, but understanding
it's an
that
anxiety when you've left something undone, and then you just actually, regardless of whether you wake up at 2 a.m. or whatever, you just feel so much better when it's off. Like you say, it's offloaded.
Like scratched out. I've offloaded.
See our personalities there.
It's because we are always chasing fees, be it in-house or not. So I think there's always that sensation of wanting, that sense of completion, because we feel like we've accomplished and achieved something. So we do have to scratch it off, and you feel a huge relief.
Having only ever been in practice, I can say to you, for me, it's not even, don't get me wrong, I love the fees because I love to buy nice things. But it's, even if it's not a fee-related thing, if I've said to Nomthandazo, I'm going to check this judgment for you and I'll get back to you on it, as long as that item is like on this thing, I've got such anxiety. I will wake up at 2 a.m. if I forgot about it during the hurly-burly of the day and go and find that. And that's the part where I just think you guys have got it a lot. We've had lots of conversations with in-house counsel, and that sort of push-pull between what business wants, what your stakeholders want, managing your external law firms, etc. is, I feel you guys have got it, because I love this. I realized I was an adult only 3 years ago when I came to the realization that no is a complete sentence.
100%. Yeah.
And 3 years ago, all of these years of practice, all of these years of adulting, and only 3 years ago.
Yeah, you oscillate between yes, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
it's very liberating to just say no.
Yes. It takes a lot of undoing. Yeah. Like someone calls you and trying to call you on Teams, they can see that you're busy, or you've said, there's a meeting that's happening. Yeah. Or even if it's not a meeting, but you've set a task. Yeah. Since my focus time, they keep on calling you. Then they send you a text. Can I please just no? I'm not going to explain. I just no.
I feel like Nomthandazo is like she's miles ahead of both of us, because we've both been around and So, one of the things I wanted to touch on, it was part of the first responses that we spoke about, is the fact that when you are in a team in private practice, your teams are fairly big. So even if it's not necessarily my practice area, I can go bounce an idea off a colleague, or I can ask them about a specialist skill. In-house, like you've said, the teams are a lot leaner. How do you manage that? And what are your suggestions, or how do you propose, or what do you think could be done differently in-house? And I say this on the background of, I know everyone's jumped on the AI bandwagon, but with Copilot and Teams, there's lots of things you could probably do. Or is it that regardless of all this supposed AI assistance, unfortunately, if you've got a team of 3 or 5 in-house lawyers, that's your lean team, and you've just got to make it work? And how does one do that?
So in my space, you can say some of the matters are sometimes quite repetitive. So you can deal with one matter today and it will probably come up in another project. So when I started, is just understanding that you need to be teachable, you need to be able to teach others. So when you're done with the matter, and there's things that you've identified in the matter, even when you're still looking at it, just to say, as an FYI, this is what you need to do when you've terminated a contractor, for an example. Those are the steps that you need to take. What is retention? And I think sometimes it's pushing back and saying, did you look at the contract? So you teach them to go and find the answer themselves, so that when they come back to you, I've looked at the contract, what the contract says. Okay, let's sit. let me interpret it for you, let me tell you what it says. Because if we don't do that, unfortunately, we're going to repeat the same process over and over again. So it's saying to your colleagues, please go and look at it and come back to me, and let's have a session. We can have a meeting. We can still do it via email. That's fine. But look at it, and you come and tell me what it says.
I found that what works, because obviously in-house, time and resource are both commodities that you really don't have in huge supply. So you need to be able to ensure that business is sufficiently capacitated to self-regulate. So something as simple as a legal academy day. So you'll see over a pattern of time in a certain business area that these are the things that keep coming up. So they're replicated. Okay, let us have a session, whether it's all day. So now you're going to go through fundamentals of prescription, what to look out for in your contract. These are, if it's a supplier contract, this is the standard for this particular area of business. They automatically renew. So you go through those basics so that at the end of the day, you're really trying to avoid this continuous revolving door of similar type requests, only because it could be a siloed business unit, or people are really just leaving and there's no intelligible handover where these requests keep coming through. Another one, in-house, you really shouldn't have any legal resource doing something as simple as research. So this is where your panel firms come into being, and you can really lean on that, because you know that the one thing that they have that you don't is resources. So you find that it's a long-standing relationship. So I know with us, in some instances, it would be 3-year contracts. So, and built in that master contract would be the ability to pick their brain on matters where there is a vacuum or an uncertainty in an area of law. So that's where I can pick up the phone, Nikita, hey, I'm a little bit cagey about this. Can you then explain? So something as POP here before it came into effect, it was obviously very, very topical. GDPR was picking up elsewhere within Europe. So come in, got one of the law firms to come in. Again, we obviously scheduled it to be one of those legal academy days where there's an invite to the whole organization, be it physically in the office or virtually. And then you go through the basics and the principles. People are able to ask questions and the like, because in-house, you've got to work at pace with the organization, sometimes even faster than them, because they tend to, with respect, sit on their laurels, and they don't necessarily always appreciate, from a business perspective, the risks that are immediately within their areas of business. So you don't get the benefit of saying, oh, I've blocked out time, I'm going to be sitting in the library researching. You don't, because you've got to be able to think on your feet. And again, this is where there's value. The people in-house are really more business partners and trusted legal advisors than in the conventional law firm, where they will thrash out opinions and research. In-house, no one really cares about that opinion. It's like, are you able to give me an answer? And more often than not, business wants it now, if not yesterday. So it's just being able to translate what the business needs are legally, again, from the purview of risk, reward, reputation. Because business will always do what it is that business intends to do. You just have to have the eye to ensure that it's done in a legally compliant manner. They'll still charge ahead, nonetheless. So
I always think to myself, it's very important to understand, what are we trying to achieve? What's the outcome of the assistance that you want me to give you? And then when you understand that, then you also able to determine, does it need me to sit and be doing research for the next 2 hours? Or no, I can just tell you right now what the answer is, because ultimately, you said, business just cares about the output. You can give me a 5-page legal opinion. Chances of me reading that, I'll probably just go through to the conclusion. So sometimes it's just being able to empower yourself and have that knowledge, but be able to deliver it to business in a way that makes sense to them. And I think that's a very, a vital thing to learn when you're coming in-house. The legal opinions don't look the same. They look totally different from what you would submit in practice. Because in practice, you submit it to probably a legal counsel in-house who's able to dissect the information and say, okay, this is the outcome, or this is the output of what we're trying to achieve. But, when you are in-house and you're the one providing the legal opinion, a 5-page document won't help. What business is concerned about is, can we do this?
100%,
And if so,
yeah.
how?
And if your opinion ultimately says no, that hasn't assisted them in any way, because what you need to understand is that move from conventional law firms in-house, you're really a business partner with a legal qualification than anything else. So more often than not, your idea and your outcome should still be aligned with theirs, that yes, yes, yes. It may not always be in the way that business has envisioned it, because perhaps they sought a straight path and you're like, oh, the straight path actually is riddled with a lot more legal complexities. However, if we have a detour via route B to C, still the same outcome, it may not necessarily be as smooth or as fast as you anticipated. But again, from that solidity in law and compliance, you get to both tick the boxes and you're happy.
And I think that's it, right? With business, whoever in-house legal is feeding to, they want the answer in the first 3 sentences, or they've lost interest. Whereas with, let's be honest, those of us in practice, we have the luxury of pontificating about the law and this SCA judgment and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, if you don't have the answer in the first 3 lines, no one cares, so I think so. Question, and I know, Reneiloe, where you say that, no, you were in practice a long time ago, but do you think that having this work-life integration is easier in-house or in practice? Because Nomthandazo, you've been in practice quite recently as well. Or do you think it actually doesn't matter? It depends on the organization or the person that you work for, or, the team that you're in.
In principle, it really shouldn't matter, because I've spoken with people where their experiences really aren't all that different from my 23 years ago in practice. Obviously, when you're a CLP, I think realistically, your expectations should be somewhat different. That it is 2 years, it's training. It's never going to be as simplistic and as predictable as saying, I come in at 8 and I leave at 5. So that, I think, with anyone coming in to a law firm, you've got to be a little bit more open-minded to the training, as it were, which more often than not, some law firms are obviously very strict with their rotations. It's still the 6 month. Some don't even have rotations. So you live and die by whichever department you've come in for the full 2 years. So it really just all depends on that fluidity. But you've got to be open-minded enough, as I think, as a CLP, to be adaptable and understand that it won't necessarily be as simplistic as an 8 to 5. Once you obviously go through the ranks, I imagine, but you can both jump in to correct me, you probably have a little bit more flex in time management the older you get, because the answers presumably are a little bit more easier to come by. And you've established a rapport with the client. So when the client does call you at 5, you're not saying, oh, I've got to check with my principal. You can actually dispense that advice because A, you've got the experience, but also the confidence, and you've established rapport with the client. Versus at a CLP, you obviously have very little discretion in what you can and can't do. So I think it's just a little bit of a balance. And in-house, it's still the same. I mean, yes, the organization plays a huge role. If it's hugely toxic with no transparency and accountabilities, then no one in the organization, irrespective of rank, presumably has any amount of flex. However, if it is an organization in the new age where we're saying it's underpinned by psychological safety and all of those niceties in the truest sense of the word, then there is obviously that work-life integration. But if it's a mere buzzword, then you see it in the behaviors of the organization that typically people are just terrified. So you're in constant fright mode. Then with that, there is no balance by whatever stretch of the imagination you can put to it, because there's no mindfulness in that organization.
Yeah, I think for me, as someone who's just recently left Pricks, like almost 3 years ago, but I think for me, it boils down to the communication. For you to have that, work integration, communicate, because people won't give you what you're not telling them. If you're saying, I have to go, I have a meeting at my son's school. I need to leave at this time. But if you're not saying anything, you're going to sit at your desk and you're going to be frustrated thinking, I was going to leave at 5, but here I am still sitting, but you didn't communicate. You need to communicate and you let the people you're working with, be it your manager, be it, juniors, someone at your level, just communicate. People know and know what to expect. Because the more you create an expectation of I'll always be here at my desk. I was saying to Reneiloe when we walked in that, sometimes we work so hard that you forget about being visible. I'm a hard worker, but you're really going to benefit by getting
to sell yourself unless you put yourself out there.
So do things, that are out of your comfort zone for you to really also integrate. So people know you outside of work. Not everyone is going to know you outside of work. But if someone knows that, this one has kids, okay. So when they are not available, sometimes they, probably with their kids, or for whatever reason you're not available. But if you communicate and there's clear expectations, then we all know this person is not available. This time, if I need to jump in a meeting because you're not available, I'm able to do that because you communicated. But if you don't, and now you are driving and trying to be in the meeting, and now it's disturbing, and everyone is thinking this person is so incompetent because why we can't hear you? You knew you have a meeting. It's just being an alert about it. Sometimes just saying I'm just gonna have clear lines of communication and manage my work, manage what people expect of me. The partners, because we sometimes assume that by the time I make partner, I'm sure I'm gonna have all the time in the world.
No.
People don't know what they don't know. So I like your idea that it really boils down to communication.
Yes.
Because it could well be that, I look like I love going to galas, but it's because I say it. Guys, Friday, 1:30, I'm leaving to go to a gala. Yeah. And you could be sitting there as a wilting flower. Why are you upset? Because you've said nothing. So people genuinely won't know. Until you're like, okay, great. I'm going to work through my lunch hour. At 2:00, I'm leaving because a ballet recital. And sometimes you genuinely don't owe anyone an explanation. I've got a personal matter to attend to. I will be back online at 3. Should the need arise.
Sorry, I was only going to say, because I am a complete and absolute Luddite. So I do try and put all my appointments, just so, because everyone has access to my calendar. And then several years ago, I realized when I put in an appointment and I don't mark it as private, then everyone knows, like, I've got an OBGYN appointment. I'm like,
okay, so don't classify it
private. No, I'll just put a doctor's appointment. But because I needed to remember what it was I was doing, because you literally live by your calendar, I then discovered the private function.
Yay.
It's like, yay.
So that I could.
And I can see what it says, but everyone else can just see that it's blocked out. Sorry, it was just me being a bit, sometimes. The thing, though, and I say this having been a candidate attorney all the way up to partner, that I think is the amount of admin you have to do that you can't get away from. And, I love practicing law. I love my practice area. I don't know if it's the same in-house, where the more senior you get, the more you're actually not doing the work you love. What you're doing is managing people.
100%.
The worst thing I ever. It's my worst. You can't pay me enough to manage people. Or you're doing admin. So it's not just like recording your time. It's all this other, sort of constraints.
The softer aspects and the softer skills.
Exactly.
That really aren't hard law.
No, it's exact. And I don't know, is that something that, what do you think of it? Is it something in-house has to deal with?
You do.
Still, okay.
I don't think you'll ever, it's a necessary evil. So I don't think you'll ever be able to get away from
I
that.
have this glamorized idea that I could.
No. Because I found, I would do invoices. And that's something where there's no one else. So I could have a paralegal. They're not going to be able to determine whether you're charging 5 hours for that interface or engagement really is that. But I can sit there, it's like, no, hang on. That was really only 10 minutes and that was it. So then, or sometimes by virtue of the complexity of the matter, Nikita, really, is this worth cumulatively 6 hours when, yes, I get that you may have at the back end done some work, but this was a very straightforward matter. I came to you at a point in time where it certainly wasn't it had progressed.
Yeah.
So I'd done some of the legwork myself. And then you have the conversation where someone else, part of your support team, or wouldn't necessarily be able to assess that. So again, it's a necessary evil. So invoices still had to do. And then it's sitting with management, or with a lot of things that really have nothing to do with law. All good though.
No, so it's unfortunately just a part of seniority, I think. So, but thank you very much. I loved our conversation. And I think for me, a few things that I must say stuck with me is the communication aspect, the, liaising with your business units. I love the idea of having a legal academy day with your business units, and at the start of a year, setting out, what the expectations are, things like that. The other part that also I loved is the triage idea, because I think with lots of, not just in-house, but in practice as well, we don't triage anything.
Yes.
We're reacting so much, and like you said, Reneiloe, we're glamorizing it. So I think this idea of having, I'm obsessed with a legal ops person. It's a concept that we read about, and they're not lawyers, they're project managers, engineers.
We had that, yeah.
It's
so
fantastic.
It's absolutely
and they
incredible.
can do the triage, because they're not, oh, this is a great client, or this is a friend of mine who's a client, or this is like a matter I want to be involved in. They will just actually deal with the guy with the knife wound.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then all of you know to swarm, because it's like, oh, jeepers, this is absolutely urgent.
Yeah.
And the person who's coming 2 weeks later, in respect of, I don't know what you're going to do, pull a rabbit out of a hat for a contract that expired 6 months earlier. Help me, legal. It's like, we're a lot of things. We even think we're super gods, but we're absolutely not magicians. That's on you, business. It's a business relationship. So you need to pick up the phone, and then is the relationship capable of being restored? Then naturally you'll restore it, and you're able to obviously panel beat another contract just to formalize the relationship. But yeah, I think people just need to have those boundaries, understand that lawyers, we believe we can do absolutely everything, but not. So, yeah.
And of course, not because we're type A narcissistic people.
Not at all.
So thank you to you both. I'm quite sure that all the LNP Beyond Legal podcast listeners are going to take a lot away from this. I'm certainly going to try and be consciously available and not glamorize this, multitasking, which, I think we're all in agreement is not helpful to anyone, and certainly not for a work-life integration or trying to manage any aspect of your life. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.